Nothing is free. The story of Leo. What if everything you ever dreamed of was just one risk away, but failure could destroy everything you love? What if the life you wanted asked for more than you thought you could give? This is the story of Leo, not a hero, not a genius, just an ordinary young man who discovered that nothing in life is free. The quiet town. Leo's world was small, a cluster of houses pressed between cold mountains and quiet fields. Smoke drifted from chimneys in the morning. The same faces walked the same roads. People here worked, slept, and repeated. His father, Mark, fixed engines in a narrow garage that smelled of oil and rain. His mother, Claire, cleaned other people's homes, her hands red from soap. And little Sophie, 10 years old, bright-eyed, believed her brother could do anything. But Leo felt the weight of a ceiling pressing down. He was 20, restless, and broke. Each night he sat outside, watching the stars, whispering the same line. One day, I'll give them a better life. One day he didn't know how, he only knew he had to. The lesson one. Evening his father found him staring at the sky. What's keeping you up, son? I keep thinking, Leo said, about what comes next. I want to start something, but we have nothing. Mark wiped his hands on a rag and smiled, tired but gentle. Then start with what you do have. Your time, your will, your hands. Dreams aren't free, Leo. You fight for them, inch by inch. The words landed quietly, but they stayed. That night, Leo lay awake repeating them until they felt carved into his bones. A simple idea. The next morning, walking through town, he noticed something small. People carried bags of bread from a bus stop miles away. A thought appeared, sharp and simple. What if I brought the bread to them? He had no money, no cart, nothing but the idea. Still, he decided to try. The nearest bakery sat beyond the hills, owned by a man everyone called Old Mr. Anderson, a baker with white hair, heavy hands, and a voice like gravel. Leo walked there on foot. When he arrived, sweat and dust on his shirt, the man looked up from his counter. What do you need, boy? I want to sell your bread in my town, Leo said. I can't pay up front, but if you trust me for 1 week, I'll sell it all, return your money and keep a little profit. Mr. Anderson frowned. Trust? That's expensive. You won't lose, Leo said. You'll just see if I mean what I say. Silence stretched. Then the old man sighed. 1 week. Don't make me regret it. Leo bowed slightly. You won't. The first day before sunrise, Leo set up a small wooden table near the park. Cold wind bit his fingers. The bread's warmth fogged in the air. Fresh bread. Warm and soft, he called, voice shaking. People walked by. Some smiled politely. Others didn't look. Hours passed, feet numb, hope fading, until an old woman stopped. Is it any good? Try it, he said, breaking a piece. She tasted it, smiled. It's real bread. She bought 2 loaves. That was the spark. By sunset, the basket was empty. Leo ran the miles back to Mr. Anderson's bakery, handed him the money, and said, breathless, I told you I'd keep my word. The old man nodded once. Come back tomorrow. The rhythm of workdays became weeks. Every dawn, Leo walked to the bakery, carried bread home, and sold it till dusk. His voice became familiar. Children waved when he passed. People began saving coins for the bread boy. He wasn't rich, but he was no longer standing still. And that feeling, progress, was addictive. Still, each night he counted his earnings and whispered, This is only the beginning. The new dream. One afternoon, a customer said, You're great at selling, but imagine if you baked your own bread. You'd make more, and it'd be yours. The idea stuck like a seed under his skin. He tried to ignore it, but it kept growing. Could he learn? Could he afford to fail? The next morning, he walked to the bakery again, waited for the customers to leave, and asked quietly, Mr. Anderson, will you teach me how to bake? The man laughed. Why would I teach my competition? Because I'll never forget who gave me my first chance, Leo said. If I succeed, you'll have helped build it. The baker studied him, then nodded. Be here at 3 a.m. Don't be late. The struggle. Baking was nothing like selling. It was patience, timing, and failure. Leo's hands blistered from kneading. His dough was too dry, then too wet, then burned. He ruined batch after batch until the smell of smoke meant shame. Some nights he wanted to quit, whispering, "Maybe I'm not made for this." Mr. Anderson heard him once and said, "No one's born knowing success. We learn by not quitting." Those words became Leo's anchor. He failed again, but slower. And each mistake hurt less. Until one quiet dawn, a loaf came out golden, perfect, alive with scent. Mr. Anderson tasted it and said simply, "You're ready." Leo smiled, tears gathering in the heat. Home oven. He rented a small oven, set it in their kitchen. Flour dusted the floor like snow. His mother brewed tea to keep him awake. His sister folded paper bags. His father built wooden shelves from scrap. They laughed together for the first time in months. Leo sold the first batch himself under the same park tree. People noticed the difference. "This one tastes better," they said. He told them softly, "Because it's mine." Soon, the demand grew, and for a while, everything was light. Growing pains. Success brought new problems: supply, long nights, exhaustion. Leo forgot what rest felt like, but he kept pushing. He believed that tired hands were a small price for a better life. Sophie sometimes found him asleep at the table, head on his arms. She'd cover him with a blanket and whisper, "Don't give up, big brother." He never did. Competition. Then one day a sign appeared in town: Eric's Bakery, grand opening. Eric was young, confident, and wealthy. His shop shone with glass windows and colored lights. Crowds gathered, curiosity did the rest. Within weeks, Leo's sales dropped by half. At night, he sat outside his dark shop, hearing laughter spill from Eric's across the street. For the first time in years, he felt small again. But instead of giving up, he began to listen. He asked customers, "What do you like about Eric's place? What can I do better?" Some said, "It's prettier." Others, "His cakes look like art." Leo took notes. Then he painted his cart, added flowers, practiced icing from library books, learned to decorate. He didn't hate his rival. He learned from him. And slowly, customers drifted back, not just for bread, but for the warmth that only effort creates. The storm. It was late autumn when the sky turned black and the wind began to roar. Leo was cleaning up when he smelled smoke. He turned. Flames licked the oven wall. Within seconds, fire spread. He shouted for water, threw buckets, burned his arms. By the time it was out, half the bakery was ash. When morning came, people gathered. "He worked so hard," they murmured. "Maybe this is the end." Leo stood among the ruins, heart heavy, smoke still rising. He whispered, "This is just another test." He counted his savings, not enough to rebuild. Fear crept in like cold water. Then he thought of Mr. Anderson. He found the old man sitting outside his shop, sipping tea. "What would you do if you were me?" Leo asked. The baker smiled. "I'd do what you always do. Work harder, believe first, and people will follow." Leo nodded. And for the second time in his life, he began again. The rebuild. He baked at home using the few tools that survived. He told his customers, "I'll keep baking even if it's one loaf a day." People respected that. They brought flour, sugar, even spare pans. Neighbors helped clean the ashes. In that chaos, he saw something profound. When you refuse to give up on yourself, others refuse to give up on you. Weeks turned to months, and little by little, brick by brick, the bakery rose again. When it reopened, the walls were brighter, the shelves stronger, and the scent richer than ever. The mayor came, cutting a small ribbon, saying, "Leo, You've reminded us what this town was missing: hope. The crowd clapped, and Leo stood smiling, eyes glassy, heart full. A town reborn. The reopening changed more than Leo's fortune. It changed the town itself. For years, people had walked with their heads down, thinking small. Now, when they passed Leo's fresh bakes, they slowed, breathed in the smell of bread and sugar, and smiled. Children pressed their faces against the glass to watch dough rise. Workers stopped for coffee before long shifts. The bakery became a meeting place, a rhythm of the town, and Leo, once the bread boy, became Mr. Leo. He never let success make him distant. He still swept the floor every night, still greeted customers by name. To him, wealth wasn't about the coins in the drawer. It was the laughter in the shop. Lessons in flour and fire. One evening, a teenager asked him, "Mr. Leo, how did you keep going when everything burned down?" Leo thought for a moment. "I stopped asking why things happen," he said softly. "Instead, I asked what they're trying to teach me. Fire taught me patience. Failure taught me humility. Work taught me love." The boy nodded, maybe not understanding yet, but one day he would. Leo wrote those words later on a chalkboard above the counter. Nothing is free, but everything can be earned. Seasons of growth. The years moved like quiet seasons. Business grew, then steadied. Competitors came and went. Leo hired helpers, then apprentices. Sophie grew into a confident young woman, running the shop's accounts and teaching Leo how to use a computer. His parents, older but proud, sat in the corner most mornings drinking tea. Sometimes his father looked around and said, "I used to fix engines. Now, I watch you build lives." And Leo would laugh, "You built mine first." The weight of responsibility. As success expanded, so did responsibility. Invoices, taxes, deliveries, things Leo had never dreamed of now filled his days. Some nights he lay awake, wondering if the dream had grown bigger than he could hold. But every dawn, he returned to the same truth. Work done with love never becomes a burden. He found peace in routine, the rhythm of kneading, the scent of yeast, the first loaf cracking in the oven. Those simple sounds reminded him why he'd started. When the world changes years later, new times came: machines, supermarkets, cheaper bread. Friends told him, "You can't compete. People don't care about handmade anymore." Leo smiled. People will always taste the difference between something made for them and something made from them. He began teaching baking classes on weekends. Children covered in flour filled the shop with laughter. The lessons were free. Payment came in joy. Soon parents joined too, and the bakery became more than a business. It became a school of patience and pride. Echoes of Mr. Anderson. One winter morning, a letter arrived. It was from Mr. Anderson's niece. The old baker had passed away peacefully. Inside was a note written in shaky handwriting. "Leo, I always said dreams aren't free. But watching you made me realize they're worth every cost. Keep baking hope." Anderson Leo held the paper for a long time. He placed it in a small wooden frame and hung it by the oven. Every day after that, before the first loaf went in, he'd glance at it and whisper, "Thank you." Echoes of Mr. Anderson. One winter morning, a letter arrived. It was from Mr. Anderson's niece. The old baker had passed away peacefully. Inside was a note written in shaky handwriting. "Leo, I always said dreams aren't free. But watching you made me realize they're worth every cost. Keep baking hope." Anderson Leo held the paper for a long time. He placed it in a small wooden frame and hung it by the oven. Every day after that, before the first loaf went in, he'd glance at it and whisper, "Thank you." Sophie's dream. Sophie had grown into a young woman with ideas larger than the valley. One evening she said, "I want to study design in the city." Leo froze. The thought of the house without her laughter felt heavy. But then he remembered the promise he'd made to himself long ago: never let fear decide. He smiled. Go. And when you miss home, follow the smell of bread. It'll lead you back. When she left, he packed a loaf in her bag with a note. Nothing is free, but I'll always be proud of what you earn. The second fire. Years later, when Leo was older, another fire struck, not of flames, but of loss. His father passed away quietly in his sleep. The morning felt colder than any winter before. For days, Leo couldn't step into the bakery. It felt wrong to hear laughter when grief sat so close. But one dawn, Claire took his hand. Your father loved the smell of bread, she said. Honor him the way you always do, with work. Leo opened the oven again. As the first loaf baked, tears fell, but so did peace. Grief, he realized, is love that doesn't know where to go. So he put it into the dough. That day, the bread tasted different, heavy but beautiful. Time moves. On. Decades passed. The wrinkles on Leo's hands became maps of every struggle and every victory. Tourists now visited the bakery. Magazines wrote small stories about the man who never gave up. He laughed at the attention. All he had ever wanted was to feed his family. And somehow, in doing that, he'd fed an entire town's spirit. The evening walks. Each evening after closing, Leo walked the same path he had taken as a boy. The road where he once sold bread under a park tree. Now there was a bench there. Sometimes he sat watching children play and wondered how many dreams had started on that ground. He would smile and think, maybe that's all life is, passing courage forward. The letter to the future. On his 65th birthday, Sophie returned with her husband and 2 kids. They surprised him with a new sign. Leo's Fresh Bakes, since 19, still rising. That night, after the celebration, Leo sat alone in the quiet bakery and began to write a letter. To whoever finds this one day, if you're standing where I once stood, tired, unsure, afraid, remember this. You already have what you need to begin. Your effort is the currency of your dream. The world may doubt you, mock you, or forget you, but if you stay kind and keep working, it will one day turn around and listen. Nothing in this life is free, but if you pay with patience, love, and courage, you'll never feel poor. He folded the paper, placed it in a jar, and hid it beneath the counter. The final morning won. Quiet morning years later, Leo didn't wake early. The bakery door stayed closed past dawn. When Sophie arrived, she found him in his chair, peaceful, a faint smile on his face, a tray of unbaked dough beside him. The town mourned, not just for the man, but for what he represented. They carried his body past the park where it all began. The scent of bread filled the air from every home oven that day. They said he had taught them to bake, but really, he had taught them to believe. The legacy. Years later, a traveler passing through the valley stopped at the bakery. It was now run by Sophie and Mia together. On the wall hung a small wooden frame, Mr. Anderson's letter. Next to it, Leo's own words. Work hard, love harder. Never forget the price of your dreams. The traveler asked, who was Leo? Sophie smiled. He was a man who turned struggle into strength, and strength into kindness. The traveler bought a loaf, tasted it, and said quietly, you can still taste his heart in it. Reflection. The story of Leo isn't about bread, it's about the cost of hope and the courage to keep paying. It's about the invisible currency we all spend, effort, faith, love, to turn ordinary days into something meaningful. Because every dream asks a price, every victory hides behind failures, every sunrise waits for someone willing to wake before it. The truth we all share. Maybe you're listening to this while chasing something of your own, a project, a degree, a small business, a better version of yourself, and maybe the road feels longer than you thought. If it does, remember Leo. Remember the boy with no money who walked miles for bread, the man who built again after fire, the baker who never stopped rising. He wasn't special. He was simply consistent. And that, more than talent or luck, is what changes lives. The final words. So when the nights feel endless, when people doubt you, when you doubt yourself, pause, breathe, and whisper what Leo once learned under a mountain sky. Nothing is free, but everything is possible.